Hare Krishna. So I'll start by asking all of you a question and we'll discuss based on that. If you wanted to tell somebody in just one or two sentences, what is the Bhagavad Gita about? Why should they read the Bhagavad Gita? What is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita? What would you tell them? Yeah, you can raise your hands and you can suggest what you would like to say. So if you want to, I'll be using this as a whiteboard. Write a few things. Yes, please. Okay, a manual for mankind. Yeah. Somehow I'm a little uncomfortable with the word manual because life is too complicated to have any manual. Is it a manual means you press this button and this happens. You press this and this happens. So I prefer the word guidebook. It's a guidebook for humanity. So we live in a world where we need to be gender neutral. So not mankind, humanity. Okay. So I just been in America 4 months. So I would be smashed if I use the word mankind. But anyway, let's go ahead. So any other answers? It is medicine for disease. What is the disease? Sorry? Okay, medicine for disease of some material existence, you can say, of suffering in material existence. Okay, this is true, but maybe a friend is going to parties and enjoying life, and you tell them this is a disease for a medicine for a disease. It's true, but it's not very persuasive, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, please. Your answer. Maybe I intentionally did something which I don't know if you noticed. I asked you how you would communicate the Gita in a way that would inspire others to read it. But I wrote here Gita essence. So let's put it this way. It's not exactly Gita essence for inspiring others. So we are talking about 5 topics: Jiva, Ishvara, Kala, Karma, Prakriti. Is that something which is likely to, how many people want to know about that? I want to know what is Jiva, I want to know what is Ishwar. Yeah, there are people, but not in a large number. So we could say it gives us information about the truths of life. These 5 truths of life. Okay, any other answers?
Clarity for our confusions.
Clarity for our confusions. What kind of confusions?
Why we are here, what we are meant to do.
Okay, that's a good way of putting it. Clarity about, you can say, the meaning and purpose of life. Now, what are we meant to do in life? Meaning and purpose of life. A lot of people want to know. If you look in personal growth circles, what is the purpose? What is my purpose? So many people want to know about that. So that is something which is relatable. Anything else?
So leading a meaningful life.
Okay. Did I steal your answer? You are repeating my answer. Okay. So leading a meaningful life. Yes, true. Meaning and purpose. Do people want to do that? I understand what you're saying, but do. Okay, let's put it generally as to find higher happiness. Is that what you're saying? I think I was, where was I? South America. And, so I was giving a class, actually 2 of us were giving a class, one of my friend preachers. So he said, you are not your body. So one person raised his hand, if I am not my body, then whose body am I? So the bodily identity is so deep rooted. So whose body am I? I'm not my body, then whose body? So it's difficult to understand things beyond the body. But yeah. Anything else? Yes?
Overcome from depression.
Okay, overcome depression. That is true. Arjuna at the start of the Gita was disheartened. He put aside his bow, unwilling to fight. And then at the end of the Gita, he's picked up his bow, ready to fight. So his rejection, his discouragement, that was overcome by the message of the Gita. Yes.
A friend you can always approach at any time.
Are you referring to Gita or Krishna?
Same only, both.
Really? Okay. So the Gita is a friend you can always approach. It's something similar to the guidebook that we use, Guidebook for Humanity. Friend we can always approach. That's very personal. Nice way of looking at it. Anything else? One last answer, one or two last answers. Roadmap for destination. Okay. Is that similar to Guidebook for Humanity? Or something you could say, let's put it here, roadmap for our destination in life. Yes. Anything else? Yes, last we can have. Okay, understanding ourselves and our relationship with the Lord. Yes, the Gita is definitely all of these things. It does provide these things. So, let us look. Thank you for all your answers, and I'll try to integrate as many as of these I can in our discussion. So, if we look at the Gita from its context, where is the Gita spoken? On a battlefield, on the Kurukshetra battlefield. And at the start of the Gita, Arjuna is disheartened. So, the Gita essentially is an assurance to Arjuna. Sometimes there are different ways in which we can know what is the message of a book. How that message can inspire us, that's a secondary thing. But what is the essential message of a book? So one of the time-tested ways, which is within Vedic hermeneutics, within the way scripture is understood, it's common sense, is that if you want to know what if you're watching some YouTube video, if you're hearing a class, you want to know what the class is about, you can look at what is at the start and you can look at what is the end. Especially if it's a well-organized speaker. Sometimes a speaker speaks in such a way that they themselves don't know what they spoke. And the audience also doesn't know what they spoken. But if it's an organized speaker, the speaker will start by saying that this is what I'm going to speak about today. And then at the end, they'll say this is what we spoke about. So if we look at the Bhagavad Gita, where does the Bhagavad Gita begin and where does the Bhagavad Gita end? So we could say that the Bhagavad Gita can begin at various points. At literally, the text begins in 1.1. What is the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, it is 1878. This is the last verse. Now, we could say, okay, it is Bhagavad Gita. So that means it is the words of God. So we can say, what are the first words that Krishna speaks and what are the last word that Krishna speaks. We can look at that. So the first word that Krishna speaks is in 125. It brings the two chariots in between the two armies and Uvacha Partha Pashaitan Bhishma Drona Pramuktaha. After bringing the chariots in front of the two armies, in middle of the two armies, in front of Bhishma and Drona. Bhishma Drona Pramuktaha Sarvesham cha Mahikshitam Uvacha Partha Pashaitan Samavetan Kuruniti. This is the first descriptive word that Krishna has spoken. And in the last words that Krishna speaks is in 1872. How many chapters are there in the Bhagavad Gita? 18 chapters, okay. Do you know how many questions are there in the Bhagavad Gita? Sorry? 7, okay. You're right, close to it. Just let's add 1. Okay. Actually, there are 17 questions. Technically speaking, there are 17 plus 1 plus 1. So this is Dhritarashtra. Hmm? We don't like Dhritarashtra, so we'll cancel him. So these are questions by Arjuna. And the last is a, can you guess? Question by Krishna. They're like at the end of a class, the speaker may ask, so do you have any questions? So like that Arjuna asks, so have you understood Krishna? Arjuna? Have you heard clearly? Have you understood? So now we're considering the end of the Gita. So the last word that Krishna speaks is a question, 1872. But there are conversational points also. Just like when we are having a serious discussion, initially we start with some pleasantries. Okay, how are you? And then we get into the meat of in the core of the discussion. So the first instructive word that Krishna speaks is in 211. And the last instructive word that Krishna speaks is in 1866. So this is the first instructive word and the last instructive word. Now it's now let's look at what this is. So Krishna begins with Ashochan Anvashocastvam Pragyavadamscha Bhashase Ashochan. Ashochan means not worth lamenting. And the last word that Krishna speaks is Ma Shuchaha Sarvadharman Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja Aham Tvam Sarvapapebhyo Mokshayishami Ma Shuchaha. Now Shuchaha can mean many things, but don't lament. So essentially, what is the Gita doing? In between 2.11 and 1866, the Gita is going to give us a worldview that will assure us that the things we are lamenting for are not worth lamenting. So he says, it's not worth lamenting. Ashochan. We say, how is it not worth lamenting? There's such a terrible thing happening. A battle is going to happen. So many people will be killed. How is it not worth lamenting? So, how it is not worth lamenting, that is what is described. So, it's first like Ashochan. It's not worth lamenting. How? Krishna will describe that. And at the end of it, it's okay, don't lament. So let's look at what Krishna has in worldview that shows. What does it show? The things we lament for are not worth lamenting. Now, if Krishna had just said, Mahashucha, don't lament. How? This is serious. So if we can be educated, if we can be informed, if our consciousness can be elevated, by which we really understand, okay, it's not worth lamenting, then that is what will empower us. That is what will transform us. So we may have many specific sources of lamentation. For Arjuna, it was a terrible war in which he had to fight against his own relatives. For us, it may be many things. Maybe we are not getting a job good enough. Maybe we're not doing well in our exams. Maybe we don't have the kind of talents we want. Maybe we're not tall enough. We don't have a high IQ enough. We're not having good relationships. Our health is not good enough. There are so many things which may be worth lamenting about. It may be also in our spiritual life. Maybe I'm not serious enough in my spiritual life. I'm not able to follow this principle. This is not happening. That is not happening. The Gita tells us these things are not worth lamenting. So, how does it do that? What is the worldview that it offers by which it will show us that things are not worth lamenting? So basically, the Gita takes us on a journey. And by this journey, it shows us that there are many things happening in our life, but that we as spiritual beings, we don't have anything to lament. So I'll talk about it, the Gita's message about how it's not worth lamenting in three terms. It's three J's, and I will use three I's. These three are related. I'll explain that. So the Jiva, Jagat, Jagadish. So the Jiva is indestructible. The Jiva, the soul is indestructible. That's the first point. Now, why does this matter so much? Now, we all have heard that the soul is indestructible. But what does this actually mean? And how does it free us from lamentation? See, for all of us, we fear loss in different ways. So we may fear the loss of our youth, our health, our wealth. For some people, it may be subtler. We may feel the loss of our abilities. I may have a sharp IQ right now, but what if I get a brain degenerative disease and I just can't function? I lose my memory. What will I do? Or we may fear the loss of our virtue. So we have various things that enable us to have identity in the world. Who am I? I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor, I'm this, I'm that. And those help us gain some security, some stability in the world. So the Gita does not deny this. It explains that our identity is multi-level. We have a functional identity. We have a vyavaharic identity. Our functional identity may be based on our age. We may be teenagers, we may be youth, we may be middle-aged. It may be based on our gender. We may be male, female. It may be based on our profession, our education. It may be based on our nationality. Now, these identities have their importance. I was just on a world tour for 4 months. I was in America, Canada, UK. So when I enter America, I'm going there to teach the Bhagavad Gita. And one of the key teachings of the Bhagavad Gita is that we are not our physical bodies. But at immigration, when they ask me where have I come from, I can't say I'm a soul. Isn't it? There, I had to show my Indian password. Not password? What? Passport, yeah. So, it's a functional identity. It's important. But the thing is, if we equate our identity, if we equate it with a functional identity, if we equate our identity with a functional identity, there are two problems with it. Many, but two main problems. That sometimes that functional identity may be taken away from us. If somebody thinks their functional identity is an athlete. 20, 30 years ago in India, many young people wanted to have sports careers, but parents would oppose. But now IPL is giving so much money. Parents are encouraging children, you become a cricketer. And maybe 1 year you can earn more than what I earned in a lifetime. But the point is, in sports, somebody may become an athlete. But suppose they become irreparably injured. Normally, in most careers, people start peaking at 40, 45, 50. That's the time when they have experience, they have expertise. But in cricket, by the time you're 40, 45, you're like a dinosaurus. So our functional identity may be taken away because of our age, because of our injury. Somebody might be a surgeon, and if there's an accident in which they lose their hand, how can they do surgery? So functional identity, one problem is it can be taken away. And for most of us, when we lose something, we lament when we lose. But the extent of the lamentation depends on how much we are invested in that identity. So if somebody fails in an exam, now, okay, I failed in an exam. The level of sorrow, the level of grief, the level of lamentation, let's keep stick to that word, that can vary. Say, I have lost. Okay, I lost. I couldn't succeed in this exam. I couldn't crack this interview. I couldn't do this. That is distressing. But even more distressing is, I am lost. I have lost means, okay, I went this way, but I didn't get. I am lost means, I don't even know where I want to go. But the most damaging is, I am a loser. So if we start thinking I am a loser, there are few things as devastating for the morale of a person. When that happens, then they will start thinking, what is even the point of living if I am a loser? So this happens when some reversal, some failure happens. Why would somebody think I am a loser? That will be because they are too invested in that particular role. They have defined themselves in terms of that identity. If somebody defines themselves, okay, my entire identity is I'm a student and I have to get good marks in my exam. If I fail in my exams, what's even the point of living? There are, you probably heard about it, some high performing students in IITs and others, sometimes they don't do well in exams and they just end their life. Now, yeah, it's not good to not do well in an exam, but it's definitely not worth ending one's life. Now, in America, most American students are quite nonchalant about their studies. In America, it's mostly Asians, Indians and Chinese who excel in academia. That's why Princeton and all the Ivy League universities, they have what is called as affirmative action. They say that if we allow students to come only by merit, then all the Ivy Leagues, 90% will be Indians and Chinese, and nobody else will be there. So they try to have diversity and they try to restrict. So there was a big court case in the US Supreme Court, where what would happen is a student with CGPA of 5 from India or China would not get admission in the Ivy League. And a student from some other demographic, a Latino or a black, even if they have a CGPA of 3.5, they will get in. So that is considered discrimination. But the point is that there, the people don't take their academic studies that seriously. Yeah, it's important, I'll do it. But in India, when students don't do well, they commit suicide. In the West, if their relationships don't go well, then they commit suicide. So if I'm not in a relationship, somebody rejects me, then what is the point of living? So it's what is happening is I am a loser. There is too much being invested in one role, in one identity. It's a part of who we are. But when that is taken away, that can devastate us. The other problem is that it can be inadequate. That if my goal in life is I want to become an engineer, I want to become a doctor, I do that, and even after doing that, I don't feel satisfied. Because we are not our profession. We are more than our roles. These are important. So the Gita says, beyond our functional identity, we all have a fundamental identity. And it is this that is primarily our definition. And this fundamental identity is that we are Atma, we are souls. We are all Amsha of Bhagavan. Mamaivamsho Jivaloke. This identity can never be taken away from us. And understanding that, okay, today I may be a student, tomorrow I'm a software engineer, day after tomorrow I might be someone else. But underlying all these changes, there is a core to me that does not change. And from this, we may have, it's not that we don't care about our various identities, but these identities are all parts of who we are. And sometimes one part may become more important than other parts. So when we are seeking career, at that time, our profession may be very important. Other times, yeah, but that's not soul of who we are. So to the extent we locate our identity in any of our functional roles, to that extent we will be vulnerable to lamentation. To the extent we understand that I am a spiritual being and I have various roles in the world. The roles are not unimportant, but they are not all important. So they're important. Therefore, if I have lost, yeah, I'm concerned. What went wrong? Did I not work hard enough? Did I not plan well enough? Or is this just role not compatible for who I am? I need to explore that. So this level of lamentation, it's okay. In one sense, it's understandable. We are concerned. So, but this is hazardous. This is dangerous for us if this level of lamentation happens. So once we understand that I am a spiritual being, nainam shochitum arhasi, natvam shochitum arhasi. So Krishna says, do not lament, do not lament. Repeatedly. Once we understand our spirituality. So this is the first point in the Bhagavad Gita. And we are talking here about how the Gita can actually free us from lamentation. So just understanding our spirituality itself is powerful. Then the second part is Jagat. Jagat refers to the world. And as far as the world is concerned, ultimately it is impartial. Once I was giving a class, the topic was, why do bad things happen to good people? So one person rose up with great indignation. He said, I don't care why bad things happen to good people. He said, I want to know why good things happen to bad people. So the point is that we often feel distressed, not just because of the distress. There's something more to it. I'll use two words over here. And if you can tell me the difference between the two of them. Adversity and atrocity. Is there a difference? Is it adversity to you to be asked this question? Can any of you, or atrocity? Yeah? Okay, that's okay. What do you think is the difference between these two words? Yes?
Adversity means something has come, or some situation, bad situation has come along. But atrocity means someone is intentionally is trying to do something wrong.
Excellent, precise. Very nice, thank you. So adversity, we could say, is almost natural. So if there is a flood, if there is a drought, if there is a hurricane, that's a adversity. But atrocity, it's intentional. If there is a flood, and at that time somebody deliberately opens the gates of a dam, and then our house gets flooded, then that is not adversity, that is a atrocity. So the Bhagavatam talks about this as aho kashtam, aho anyayam. So the Pandavas suffered both. So kashta is adversity. Anyaya is what? Atrocity. So now among these two, adversity and atrocity, which is more difficult to bear? Atrocity, isn't it? Adversity, okay, you know what to do. It's bad. It just happened. But when somebody is out there to hurt us, somebody has deliberately done some things by which our life has become more miserable, that is very, very difficult to bear. So, in general, the first thing I talked about is the soul. Now we talk about the world. And in the world, one of the things that the Bhagavad Gita says is that the world is, can you complete this? Dukkhalayam. All of you quite happy to say this, sir? Complete this. Okay. So, Dukkhalayam. Now, I was in Harvard, I was giving a class, and he says, one person said, your Bhagavad Gita is such a pessimistic book. The world is Dukkhalaya. So I told him, it's not that simple. Because if you consider the Bhagavad Gita itself, it was spoken to Arjuna. At the start of the Gita, Arjuna was distressed. And in the middle of the Gita, in 8:15, Krishna speaks this verse, Dukkhalaya. So, Krishna doesn't say, okay, Arjuna, you are distressed, this world is a place of distress, therefore Bhagavad Gita is proven now, shut up. No. By the end of the Gita, Arjuna is relieved of distress. So, when the Gita states that this world is a place of distress, that is not a statement meant to condemn us to misery. If that had been the purpose, then why would Krishna have spoken the Bhagavad Gita to pacify Arjuna? As I said, the Gita's purpose is Ma Shucha Ashochan. It is to free Arjuna from lamentation, which is a form of distress. So the point of the Gita is something very different. When it says the word Dukkhalayam, what it means is, to understand it, let's compare it with another word. What will be this word? Himalaya. Now, what does Himalaya mean? Mountain. Specifically, what does it mean literally in the language? Yeah, form of mountain. It is the place of snow. Himalaya, like we have Pustak Alaya. It's a library. So, Himalaya is the place of snow. Now, if somebody goes to the Himalayas and says, my purpose of visiting the Himalayas is to avoid cold. Well, buddy, you are really in the wrong place. Not just physically, in your head you are in the wrong place. Isn't it? You can't be in the Himalayas and expect to not be cold. But is cold the only thing to be experienced in the Himalayas? No, there are many other things to be experienced. There is the majestic beauty of the Himalayan mountains. There is the flora and the fauna that grows there. For those who are adventure seeking, there is the treks. You can have so much thrill. For those who are more spiritual seekers, there are places like Badrika Ashram. You can go high up there. There is so much more to experience in the Himalayas. But all that can be experienced only after that person makes peace with the reality that it is going to be cold. If a person goes to the Himalayas and constantly complaining, it's so cold, it's so cold, it's so cold, people around them will start saying, what you're saying is so old, so old, so old. Stop it now, isn't it? So, we have to, if we want to experience the richness of the Himalayas, we have to make peace with the fact that it's going to be cold. Make peace with it, and then we can open ourselves to many other experiences. So similarly, in this world, there are many things to experience. But we can experience them only when we make peace with the fact that distress is always going to be there in our life. Now, that does not mean that distress is the only thing we have to experience. It is going to be one part of our experience. If we consider this to be our consciousness. Our consciousness is what enables us to experience things. So within our consciousness, distress is always going to be there. Something or the other will cause us distress. And you're sitting and hearing this class, maybe the chair is not comfortable enough, or maybe the prasad you took was not enough, or the prasad you took was too much and you're feeling sleepy, or maybe you're sitting too much in the front and you're feeling that you're too much in the limelight, you're sitting too far behind and you can't see properly. Everything that we go to, there will always be some difference. Now, some of us, we feel I'm too tall, I'm too short, I'm too thin, I'm too fat, I'm too dark, I'm too fair, I have too little hair, I have too much hair. My nose is too big, my nose is too small. There's so many things. There's always something that will cause us dissatisfaction. And if the goal of our life is to remove distress from our life, then that goal will itself fill our life with distress. That very goal, thinking that I want to remove all distress from my life. Then if some small distress comes in, it will be unbearable. Isn't it? So the Gita says, make peace with distress. Now, when you say, I'll explain what this means. Make peace with distress, or more specifically, with the fact that there will be distress in our life. It may come in some form or the other. It may be in different forms for different people. There will be distress in our life in some form or the other. Everyone. It is. Now, we, based on the previous point, based on our identity, which particular identity we have invested in, there will be some distress which will torment us much more. And other distress may torment others more. As I said, now from India, a lot of people go to America. And Indians in America are the wealthiest minority. Indians in America are among the most successful people. The average American divorce rate is something like 12 or 15%. The average Indian divorce rate is about 2 or 3%. So Indians do very well over there. And when I visit there, we don't have so many temples, so I stay in devotees' houses also many times. So life over there materially is very comfortable. But there are some things here which people there miss a lot. And one of those things is community. Is India, we feel there are too many people. In America, they feel too few people. It's like your kid can't play with, there are no kids nearby to play with. The parents send their children to daycare, not because, one reason is of course they both parents have to work, but even if both parents don't have to work, there is no socialization for their kids unless they send them to daycare. So it's materially prosperous, but it can be quite lonely. It can be very lonely. So I was talking with one American couple and I asked them what they do. So the woman, she was saying, I'm a stay-at-home dog mom. Stay-at-home dog mom. So I said, is that really a thing? He said, yeah, it is. Then I Googled it, it seems it is there. So people, they just are so lonely that a dog becomes like your baby and you take care of the baby. In 6 of the top cities in America, Chicago and a few others, among the Caucasian population, the number of pets is more than the number of children. So people feel profoundly lonely. Not only that, in America, in India, we have, there are many physical discomforts, but one of the big advantages is that we can employ maid servants and male servants to get things. In America, you have to be actually more than a millionaire to employ anyone. The basic minimum wage is so much that you just can't employ anyone. Even extremely wealthy people, everything they have to do on their own. So the point is that everywhere in the world there is distress. The form of distress may be different, but there is distress. So, the when somebody's goal of life is to just remove distress, then that goal itself fills them with distress. Because then some small problem comes and they think this problem represents the failure of my life. One of my friends in America, he and his wife, both of them are attorneys. So, but he's also a priest. So he arranges marriages, and his wife, he's also attorney in, I think he's in inheritance law, but his wife is in family law. Now, family law is just a polite word for divorce. So, so he says we are the complete package. I make marriages, she breaks marriages. So, so, so that lady was telling me that sometimes people are so much enamored with having the perfect match. Sometimes people ask me, I had written a book on reincarnation. So they ask, do we have a soulmate? You've heard this word, soulmate? So, do we have a soulmate? So I tell, first find the soul, then worry about the mate. So, the idea is because of so many romance novels and romantic romance movies, people have this idea that there is someone out there who is perfect for me. And I just need to find that person. Mhm. So, compatibility is given a very high premium. And people spend years and years just trying to find a perfect match. So they came, and this lady was telling me about one couple. She says they married in the 30s or something like that. After a long search, they dated for so many years also. And then the woman, when she divorced, they said, "What is the reason for the divorce?" He says, "We couldn't agree on the temperature for the AC in our room." Now, see, is that a reason for divorce? It seems ridiculous. Now, maybe there are bigger issues, but they're very serious. So she said, actually, in the West, roles are very separated. You cannot be very personal. You cannot get involved. If you are in family law, if somebody wants to take a divorce, you cannot deter them from divorce. If the lawyer advises you don't divorce, they can file a case against the lawyer. So there are counselors. If you want to not break your marriage, you go to a counselor. So you can only have a professional relationship. You can't have a personal relationship. So it's like you are a service provider. The service you are providing me is breaking my marriage. Don't help me keep my marriage now. So anyway, so she talked with this lady and she said that, if he is my perfect match, then our body temperature should also sync with each other. Now, when you hear it from this perspective, it's a ridiculous idea. But within her worldview, there is a perverse reasoning to it. So, if the goal of life is to avoid all distress, I should have the perfect relationship. That even a small flaw in the relationship, a small incompatibility in the relationship becomes huge, becomes unbearable. So, if our purpose in life is to avoid distress, that itself will cause us great distress. That's why the Gita says, make peace with distress. This does not mean that we just live morose and distressful. No, when we are in the Himalayas, we are there for some purpose. Okay, I want to climb this mountain peak. I want to see this holy place. So, how do we make peace with distress? That is by focusing on a higher purpose. So when it says this world is dukkhalaya, as we're talking about here, where is it going? I was talking 3 J's. Okay, we're going a long way behind. Okay. The Jagat is impartial. Impartial means that everybody has distress in their life. In some cases, we may feel, oh, this distress has come naturally. In this cases, this distress, this person caused me this distress. And therefore, I have to get back at this person. But, okay, don't make removing distress the purpose of your life. Have a higher purpose. So, Jagat, this is Dukkhale, means everybody will have distress. So, make peace with it. And now that does not again mean that any people are abusive and we just let them abuse us. No, it means that we focus on a higher purpose. And for that higher purpose, if we have to even confront someone, we can do that. But the confrontation is not simply for retaliation. You did this to me, so I'll do this to you. Some people make revenge the purpose of their life. You did this to me, and you did this to my father, and you did this to my grandfather, and this goes on for dynasties. No. Focus on a higher purpose in life. And that brings us to the last part, which is the most, you could say, most important part. The Jagadish is infallible. What does infallible mean? Sorry? Infallible? What does it mean? Can't be destroyed. Well, that is indestructible. Okay, one who cannot fall. That's one meaning. That's generally, philosophically, we use that, Achyuta. But infallible specifically, yes? Yes, one who never makes a mistake. So, what this means is, we may make mistakes, but we are not a mistake. Our existence is not a mistake. We may have made this mistake and that mistake. Some people, they say, okay, if only I had chosen this career, if only I had taken this job, if only I had grabbed this opportunity. Yes, we all make mistakes in life. But we are not a mistake. Our existence has value. Our existence has purpose. God does not make mistakes. We are all His parts. And He has a purpose for our life. So, the idea is, we are not alone in this world. It's not that, okay, this world is a big bad place and I am fighting it all alone against this entire world. Yeah, there are fights in the world and there are bad elements in the world. But we are not alone. We are with Krishna and Krishna is with us. So, I sometimes give a class on this topic. God does not believe in atheists. What's funny about this? Yeah, normally we say atheists don't believe in God. So yes, atheists don't believe in God and God returns the favor. What it means is that actually, if we consider everybody is a soul, now around the soul there is the mind, and around the mind there is the body. So atheism is just a misconception in the mind. It's a conception. That person may not think it's a misconception, but atheism is just a misconception, is a conception in the mind. But when Krishna sees beyond the atheism to the soul. Okay, your atheism is just a temporary conditioning, but you are a soul, you are my eternal part. So, Krishna, our existence is not a mistake. Our mistakes, even the mistake may go up to rejecting God. But even then, God does not reject us. He sees beyond it. So, we all are eternally the parts of Krishna. And because we are the parts of Krishna, so therefore, we have a part in Krishna's plan. These two are important things. See, there is philosophy and there is practice. The philosophical truth is we are parts of Krishna. And the practice is that it means that we have a part in Krishna's plan. Krishna has a plan for the world, Krishna has a purpose for the world, and every one of us has a part. Some of us may have a big part, some of us may have a small part, but every single one of us has a part. And our existence in that sense has value. So we all have been given some gifts. We have some interests, some abilities, and we use those abilities in a mood of service. So, whatever be the challenges, the difficulties we may be facing, if we act, we look inward to see, okay, what abilities do I have? And what interests do I have? What talents do I have? And we use that to act in the mood of service, act in the mood of contribution. Then we will find that each one of us can make a meaningful difference. So now the difference may not be a sensational difference, it may not be a newsworthy difference, it may not be a world changing difference, but it can be a meaningful difference. See, when we act in the mood of service, why are we talking about service here? Because if I understand I'm a part of Krishna, then a part has a role to play in the whole, and that whole is in the mood of service. So we often use the word service attitude, seva bhav. Now, service attitude is not just coming to the temple and doing some service. Yes, that's important, of course. That connects us with Krishna. But service attitude essentially means two things. It means acting within limitations. If we are acting in a mood of service, that means the very fact is that I am not the in charge, I am not the whole. So therefore, there will be some limitations. But within those limitations, we are expected to act. Isn't it? Okay, if somebody is in charge of cleaning the house, then okay, you are expected to do your job well. Well, if you're in charge of cleaning the house, that doesn't mean you start renovating the house. That's not your job. If you have some ideas, you can give those ideas, but you don't. But so we act within limitations. So sometimes when we don't have the service attitude, the opposite of the service attitude is the controlling attitude. When we have controlling attitude, there can two things that can happen. We spend all our time fighting against limitations. Why am I like this? Why am I so short? Why am I so tall? Why am I like this? Why am I like that? Why am I not like that? And nowadays with technology, people are equipped so much more to fight against limitations. But ultimately they can't fight because we are all limited. We can change many things. We could change maybe our hairstyle. There is so much money people spend on cosmetic surgery to try to look better. But ultimately, there's no such thing like a perfect face. There's no such thing as a perfect physique. In the West, there is now a big craze that people think I am in the wrong body. So I'm in the wrong body. So boys change their gender to become girls, and girls change their gender to become boys. And it's not only being done, it's done for kids who are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Especially in adolescence, everybody feels uncomfortable. Adolescence is when the puberty is coming, the hormones are rising. Before that age, boys, girls can just play with each other. They're not so bodily conscious. Of course, because of movie propaganda, everybody becomes sexualized. But it's not so much. But at the age of 11, 12, 13, sometimes kids become very self-conscious, very image conscious. And then they start feeling that, actually this is, maybe I don't look good enough, I don't feel good enough. Maybe the solution is change my gender. And sometimes people do irreversible surgeries, and then do surgeries and 5, 10 years down the line they regret, why did I do that? So we can't reject the limitations that are imposed by nature. Especially this is a big craze among girls, because in the as westernization is moving forward across the world, girls are brought up to with the idea that you are equal to boys. Well, yeah, they should not be deprived of opportunities, but they're not equal. This is not discrimination, this is just biology. Especially when puberty comes, boys have a growth spurt. They grow very rapidly. Maybe before below 10, if a boy and a girl fight, the girl may beat up a boy also. But after puberty comes, then it doesn't happen. I mean, the body develops differently. And that time girls start feeling I'm inferior because biologically they're different. They start thinking maybe I'll be better off as a boy. So the statistics vary, but hundreds and hundreds of girls, they just change their gender. They become boys, and after some time they feel, what did I do? Now they actually do not just hormone, the puberty blockers, there are hormone injections, then there are surgeries to change or remove the bodily parts. And it just the surgical changes don't work eventually. And many of them have regrets and they want to change back again. And it's impossible. So sometimes, now this is an extreme example, but the principle is that when we think we have a controlling attitude, then we may think, oh, why can't I control this? We spend all our energy fighting against limitations. There are some limitations, just accept them. That doesn't mean we are limited in every way. Or the other is, we just stop fighting entirely. We just give up. But in between, the balanced attitude is, the controlling attitude, we could say extremes. If we avoid these two extremes, so what happens is, in controlling attitude, I overestimate my capacity, I think I can change everything. Or I underestimate my capacity and I think I can't change anything. But there are some things we all can change. There are some things where we can improve. And that balance is found through service attitude. I accept my limitations and I act within those limitations. This is what I talk about, not just for girls. Sometimes not everybody is told, you can be whoever you want to be. Well, there are few lies which are as dangerous as that. No, not everybody can be a Sachin Tendulkar, not everybody can be a Dr. Abdul Kalam, not everybody can be Albert Einstein, not everybody can be a Mozart. No, but we can find out what interests we have and we can develop them and we can make a difference. So rather than thinking I can be anyone I want to be, I look within to see what gifts I have, what interests I have, and then I develop them. That was the original purpose of Varnashram. Later on became the discriminatory caste system. But the point is, we accept our limitations. Okay, I'm not very good in math, I'm not very good in art, but maybe I'm good in this particular field. I'm good in management, I'm good in this, I'm good in that. So we accept our limitations and we act within those limitations. So when we just keep fighting against the limitations, we start thinking, oh, God made a mistake by giving me these limitations. Or we just stop fighting. What is the use? I'll never amount to anything. That means saying, God made a mistake by creating me only. But no, God is infallible. So this God is the idea that God is infallible is not just some philosophical idea of perfection. That means we all have a purpose for our life. Tasmat tamuttishta yasho labhasva jitva shatrun bhungshvarajyam samruddham mayai vaite nihata purmaveva nimitta matram bhavasau visachi. Krishna says, therefore arise, tasmatam uttishta yasho labhasva. You can attain victory. You are competent to fight your battles. You are not competent to fight all the battles of the world. So Arjuna is competent to fight the battle on the Kurukshetra war. He is not competent to fight the battle in Duryodhana's mind. That is a battle which Duryodhana alone has to fight. If Duryodhana had fought that battle, then the war could have been avoided. But Duryodhana is not ready to fight that battle. And you cannot change that person's mind. If that person is bent on fighting, then there's not much that you have to fight. But fight for establishing dharma. So accept our limitations. Krishna's plan is infallible. He has a plan for all of us. So going back to that earlier point, I have lost. When we start thinking, I am a loser. No, we are not losers. Why? Because sometimes the nature of life is there'll be setbacks. But Krishna will take us to a better place. If we act in the mood of service using our abilities, when we act in the mood of service, two things will happen. That first is, we will make better things. We will make things better. All of us can, in our small corner of the world, make things better. But more than that, we will become better beings in trying to act in the mood of service. Like some people who are sick, and naturally, if they're sick, it's painful. We may be dependent on others. We can't really control things so much. But okay, accept that. Accept that. Some people are sick and they don't accept their sickness. And then they're complaining and griping and they're resenting. And the result of that is they are sick and they make their caregivers sick of them. Isn't it? That's unfortunate. Okay. Sometimes some things may not be made better. But in acting in a mood of service, we will become better. Because the internal darkness will decrease. If we are only focusing on the outer darkness, sometimes we cannot remove the entire outer darkness in the world. Sometimes our efforts may seem that we are not removing any of the darkness. But in fighting outer darkness, we remove inner darkness. If we don't remove, at least decrease the inner darkness. The inner darkness is the feeling of pointlessness, resentfulness, worthlessness. All that can cripple us. So this inner darkness can be many things. It can be the feeling that life itself is pointless, the pointlessness of existence, or resentfulness. Why is it like this? Why is it like that? All Krishna talks about it in 1835 in the Bhagavad Gita. Various negative mental pathologies. Like yaya swapnam bhayam shokam vishadam madameva cha navimunchati durmedha dhruti sa partha tamasi, or worthlessness. So each of these it can be fought off. So worthlessness is associated with jiva. My existence is worthless. Resentfulness is against God, Jagadish. Why is life like this? Why is the world like this? Why is existence like this? And pointlessness is about the Jagat. The world itself is pointless. See, any one of these negative darkness any one of these contributors to negative darkness can make our life miserable. If all three come together, it can make our life unbearable. But the Gita helps us fight all of this. That Krishna has a plan for each one of our lives. And when we act in a mood of service, then what happens is, I'll conclude with this point now. Here, let's put it this way. We all have our fundamental identity. That is, we are Atma, we are souls. And then here there is Krishna. And here there is Krishna. Now, in between is the world. Of course, Krishna is in our hearts also. But we want to not only connect with Krishna in our heart, we also want to serve him in this world. So in the world, we have our various functional identities. So now what the Bhagavad Gita says is, use your functional identities to serve Krishna. So I am an engineer. So as an engineer, I serve Krishna. I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a parent. In these relationships, I serve Krishna. I'm an Indian. As an Indian, I serve Krishna. So we don't reject our functional identities. We accept our functional identities, but we use them in a mood of service to Krishna. And sometimes one functional identity be more important, other times another identity be more important. So sometimes one role we may be able to do some things. Now, 20 years ago, when many Indians were going to America, the common theme there was brain drain. Oh, India is losing so many talented people. But actually, the Indians who were in America, many of them, they said they used to feel guilty. But now, actually, America are contributing to India's growth, India's wealth. They are India's ambassadors there. So they may not be able to serve India in India, but they serve India in America. So sometimes particular roles may not be possible for us. Actually, Indians in America are often more serious about spirituality than Indians in India. It's when they go young when they're young, they want to enjoy. But once they become parents, there's one thing about Indians. Indians take parenting responsibility very seriously. Children feel it's too seriously, but it's different. So when they become parents, they start feeling, we don't want our children to be influenced by the cultural values of the West. So how do we impart the cultural values of India, the cultural values that we grew up with? And for that, they need spirituality. And they start exploring spirituality. So whatever be our functional role, we can use that in service to Krishna. Sometimes one functional role may be important, other times another functional role may be important. But this idea, swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. Through your work, worship that Lord, and by that you can attain perfection. So that is the hope-giving message of the Bhagavad Gita. That many things may go wrong in our life, but we needn't lament, because Krishna's plan is infallible, and Krishna's plan will work even through the various reversals of life. And by keeping our vision fixed in a mood of service to Krishna, we can weather many of the world's worst storms. So whatever karma may get us to, karma could be our past karma, present karma, whatever it is. Whatever karma may get us to, Krishna will get us through. Whatever karma may get us to, Krishna will get us through. So right now I may be in a difficult situation, but Krishna's plan is still working, and Krishna will take us to a better place if we just stay fixed in a mode of service. That is the confidence that the Gita gives Arjuna. And that is the confidence that we all can get by the study of the Gita. And that's how our metaphorical bow, our willingness to fight life's battles, that can be restored by studying the Bhagavad Gita. This is how we savor the song of God, by seeing it as a message of personal empowerment. So I started by asking you, how would you explain the Gita's relevance to new people? So the way I explain it is, Gita is a message of personal empowerment. Each one of us can be empowered by the Gita's message to fight our life's battles, internal and external, in a way that we make things better and we make ourselves as better beings. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. I started by talking about first, I'll just summarize, then we can. So first I started by talking about how the Gita is a message to free us from what? Lamentation. So I discussed many of you contribute to various things, and I looked at the structure of the Gita. So the first instructive word in 2:11 and the last instructive word in 1866. So that was the first one. Now then we discussed how the Gita frees us from lamentation. But the first point was that the jiva is indestructible. And we explained this in terms of don't become too invested in our functional identity. So what happens is, if our identity becomes equal to our functional identity, then when distress comes, the distress is not just I have lost, But it becomes I am a loser because we are too invested in that identity. But if I understand I am not a loser, I am a soul, I am indestructible, I am a part of God. So that keeps us it gives us a foundation of stability and strength. And the second point was Jagat. Jagat is impartial. Impartial in what? Distress comes to everyone in life. We feel that the Himalayas, the world Dukkhalaya. So the point here is not that we all have to be Dukhi, but the point is don't make removing distress the purpose of your life. What's happening? Okay. So don't make removing distress life's purpose. Accept that there will be distress and focus on something bigger. Make peace with the presence of distress. That, okay, some problem will be there, but what can I do higher? Like in the Himalayas, make peace with the fact that it will be cold and focus on why you are in the Himalayas. Scale the mountains. So when we focus on a meaningful purpose and not the purpose of simply removing distress, I talked about how that happens. The idea that there should be no distress in my relationship. Then even a small incompatibility in the temperature of the AC can cause a relationship, a marriage to break down. So yes, distress is there going to be there in everyone's life. So we may feel, oh, my life is far worse than others' life. Maybe in some ways, but everybody has distress. Relatively, some people have more and some people have less. But just removing distress is not the purpose of life. And that brought us to the last part. What is the last point? Jagadish is infallible. So Jiva is indestructible is talked many places, but 213 in the Bhagavad Gita. Jagat is impartial, this is 1815, and this is 1133. That the issue, that means God is infallible means we are not a mistake. At our existence, we all have limitations, but we are not a mistake. So we are parts of God and we have parts in God's plan. And if we have parts in God's plan, then we act with service attitude. That means we accept our limitations and we act within limitations. We avoid the extremes of fighting limitations and making that the whole purpose of our life, or just quitting. We avoid those and we fight our battles. So we discussed how in fighting outer darkness, in fighting our battles, what will happen is we will be able to remove the inner darkness. The darkness of, we'll be able to decrease, if not remove, decrease in the darkness of feeling that my life is pointless, of pointlessness, of resentfulness, of worthlessness. And that itself can fill our life with meaning. So with this understanding, as Arjuna picked up his bow in readiness to fight. He had been brought to a bad place where he had to fight a terrible battle. But whatever karma may get us to, Krishna will get us through. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
So, Prabhuji, you were talking about limitation. So, when someone should understand what is his limitation and how long he should fight to uncover his latent or dormant abilities?
Yeah. So, how long should we fight to overcome to uncover our latent abilities? Yes. At one level, it's a difficult question. At another level, it's a simple question. I'll explain. So it's like, suppose somebody, I was in California a few months ago. So California was at one time the most flourishing, prosperous part of America. Now also it's the most glamorized part, but it's very expensive. Taxes are very high. So for the first time in America's history, California has experienced a decrease in its population. People have left California to go to other parts of America, to Texas and other places. So anyway, in California, there was a Californian gold rush. That means they found gold under California, and people from all over America rushed there. They fought with each other. The brutal violence to kill. They would buy one patch of land. If a patch of land was rumored to have gold, its price would skyrocket. Some people, they dug and dug and they found no gold over there. So now, if we are digging for gold, how long should we keep digging? You can say that if you dig long enough, maybe from one end of the earth, you'll go to some other end of the earth where there is gold. But that level of digging, you'll die keep digging, isn't it? So sometimes you just have to, if there's no gold, stop digging over there. So the question comes, what is a reasonable level to dig? Well, it depends. How much equipment you have, how much time you have. If you dig somewhere there's no gold, then move on to somewhere else. Now, you can't just keep scraping the surface at 100 places. If you're going to dig for gold, or more common, maybe you're digging a well for water, or digging for water underground, then you can't just keep scraping the surface. But you can't keep digging unlimitedly. So we can use our God-given intelligence to set some target. And okay, and this is my area of, this is where I feel I have some ability, this is where I have some interest. And okay, I will spend some amount of time in this field. Maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, whatever. And then if it doesn't work, I'll shift somewhere else. Now we may talk about people like, say, Edison. They kept exploring, finding a bulb, kept in thousands of ways in which he didn't find a bulb, but finally found. Now, one key thing is often forgotten in these stories. The Bhagavad Gita talks about guna and karma. So guna is comfort and karma is competence. That means if I have the quality for doing something, I am comfortable doing it. If I have the karma for doing something, I am competent doing it. So these people whom we hear that they strove for years and decades and they got no results, and then they were phenomenally successful. One of the key features you'll find is that even when they were unsuccessful, when they were unknown, they were still happy. They were happy doing that activity because it was their innate nature. So J.K. Rowling created this Harry Potter. Now before that she was a broke woman. Now she's considered the wealthiest author in the history of the world, or the person who became wealthy through writing. Now there are many people who try to replicate her story, which is fine. Everybody wants to be successful in their fields. But the fact that she wrote, even before she created, she was happy writing. Her writing was not successful in the sense of the world had not recognized it. So we also had to look, if I am pushing at something, I'm doing something repeatedly, is it that I am constantly tormented by dissatisfaction because the world is not recognizing me? If that is happening, that also is an indication that maybe this is not our swabhava. So if some people love music. They may never become world famous musicians, but they just keep hearing music, producing music, performing, and that's their life. But if somebody is doing music and their constant dissatisfaction is, why are people not recognizing me? Why are people so dumb that they recognize me? What a great talent I am. So when Krishna says paradharmo bhayavaha, what it means is, if we are it has many meanings, but one of the meanings is that if we are acting in a field that is not according to our nature, then we will seek extrinsic success unethically. See, everybody wants external success. Who doesn't want it? Now, if somebody is an engineer, somebody is a manager, somebody is a teacher, everybody wants to be successful in their career. Somebody is a doctor, they want to be successful in their career. But if somebody is a doctor and they get some intrinsic satisfaction. Now, internal satisfaction alone is not completely enough. Everybody needs some outer results also. But You could say this is comfort means there is internal satisfaction, and competence means there is outer success. The world recognizes it. So now what happens is, let's consider four possibilities. There is guna and there is karma. So if both are there, it is the best. That means one is internally contented doing something, and one is externally competent, and the world also recognizes it. Those are the people who are basically the superstars in the world's eyes. Now, this is not always the case. Some people may have guna but no karma. Actually, these are the people who are miserable. They could say they are successfully miserable because they're not doing something that they like. Now, before I was introduced to Bhakti, I used to read a lot of biographies. So I had read the biography of this tennis player, Andre Agassi. So he writes that his father pushed him to play tennis. He would not be allowed to play, he would not be allowed to do anything else. And he did that. He said, I just wanted to get my father off my head. That's why I decided to become such a good tennis player that my father would not be a good enough coach for me. And then I would get rid of him. So he did that. But in that process, he said, I hated tennis. And there are times when his hatred came out. He cheated in sports and then he confessed about it. My point is that he was not a very happy person. He had a lot of, now this is not to criticize him, but that's an example of somebody who had karma but not really the guna. He was not really happy playing tennis. He was happy with all the accolades that came. But there are people like that. If the guna is not there, there is no internal contentment. External, there might be success. Now, if there is no guna and no karma, you could say they are failed and miserable. If there's guna, if there is guna but no karma, then they may be unsuccessful in the world's eyes, but they will be satisfied. So I would say one of the parameters, how long should I push on, will depend on, in pushing on, am I satisfied? If in pushing on I'm not satisfied, then that indicates maybe keep pushing on, becoming more resentful, better try something else. And of course, there are other parameters to consider. We can consult some experts in that field, experts who understand, some guides who understand us. That is there. By that, those inputs also help. But in general, so if there is no guna and no karma, and somebody is pushing on, that's like digging where there is absolutely no gold at all. Then just if this, the endeavor itself is just making us miserable, and how do we know it is making us miserable? It is one way to know it is that we are making others miserable. Now, some people, when they are doing something and they are so dissatisfied because they are not getting success, and they make everybody else miserable, then that's maybe an indication that maybe don't do this. Some people take up some service, take up some job, and they're constantly complaining, this is not working, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not doing that, you're not doing that. And maybe that's not what you meant to do. Explore something else. Does that answer the question broadly?